Hi, I'm Ted from Roarockit, and today I'm going to show you how to sharpen our Roarockit Edge. This is a scraper tool, and it's specifically meant to do the half rounds on an edge of a board. You can do some flat work with it on the end, so if you've got a wheel well that you've carved out in your board, you can scrape it with this edge and it'll take a lot of material off really quickly. It has a little bit of flat here, so if you're working on a hump or part of a flat area on your board, you can actually take it and scrape it along that too. When this is delivered to you, it'll come sharpened, but after a period of time the edge is going to dull and you're going to want to know how to resharpen it in order to make it work properly. It's made out of tempered stainless steel, so it's quite hard, but it's still flexible. There's a number of ways of sharpening this. I'm going to show you the easiest one that I think works really well. The edge needs to be very smooth and flat, and we do that using a Dremel and a little sanding drum that you can buy from a company like Dremel. The idea is we want to take this and we want to very lightly give this a little grind on the edge to make it very square with the flat surface on either side. If you're working on the flats or this half round here, it's probably a good idea to have a little very fine file, and also to have a vise is quite helpful. So if we were going to work on this flat, I would take this and put it in here, lock it up so that it can't move, and I would take the file, and the first thing I would do is I would file that flat, nice and flat, okay? And you can do it one of two ways, either holding it at 90 degrees like this, going across it, or trying to hold it nice and square like this and moving it back and forth nice and square without trying to rock it back and forth in that direction. Either way works really great. The other thing that you're gonna want to buy, a little tool called a burnisher. And a burnisher is a hardened piece of steel, and it's usually oval-like shape, okay, like that. And the idea of a burnisher is we can put an amount of pressure down on it, and we can actually force the edge of the material to expand out a little bit in order to create a burr. And in a minute I'll show you how to do that. The idea of burnishing is threefold. What we want to first do is make sure that the edge is nice and flat and nice and square. And we do that with the Dremel and the little sanding drum. And then with the burnisher, what we're going to try to do with the burnisher is try to spread the metal out a little bit on either side in step 2. So we're forcing the metal out in either side. And then step 3 is to create a burr. And we create a burr by, instead of having the burnisher nice and flat like this, what we do is we angle it a little bit and we actually get it to roll over and create a little bit of a burr. And so those are the 3 steps involved in doing this, and I'll demonstrate them. First thing that you want to do is find yourself a little bit of lubrication for the burnisher, because if it's too dry it'll stick on the steel, so you just want to put a tiny amount, not very much. It can be silicone or oil or whatever you have around, and just put it on there. We're mostly going to be using this part of the burnisher, not down at the very end, so that's the part that you want to have oiled up. And I'm going to pull this out a tiny bit, put this in here, bring it about 1 inch up from the bottom of whatever you're clamping. A vise will work, almost anything like that. And we're first going to grind this nice and true. You might get away with using a very fine file, like maybe that would be used for sharpening a chainsaw blade or something like that. But I found that this little tool works really well to do that. So you're going to hold it nice and square like this at 90 degrees. We'll turn this thing on, and all you're going to do is very gently touch it and grind the edge nice and flat. Okay? You don't want to change the shape of it, you just want to grind it nice and flat. So what I've done now is I've basically created this square. Next step is to take your burnisher after you put a little bit of oil on it, and you're going to hold the burnisher at 90 degrees to the scraper. You're going to take, and with a lot of pressure, you're going to press down and press in the direction of the half arc as you rotate the tool. So the tool is rotating around like that. And what I'm actually doing now is I'm spreading the material apart. I'm making it a little bit wider than what the two surfaces are. And sometimes it takes a couple times to go over that, but it's a lot of pressure, okay, in the direction that you're rotating the tool. Okay, so what I've done is I pulled it apart like that. Second stage, because this was at 90 degrees, second stage is to angle the tool, okay? Angle the burnisher, and I'm going to rotate it like that, and that's going to cause a little bit of a burr to be formed. Again, lots of pressure, and you rotate it and angle it in the direction you want to create the burr. And you can actually see it on the edge. You can see that it's getting shiny and that it's pulled the material away a tiny bit. And if I take my finger and I rub my finger up across like this, I can very distinctly feel that burr that I've created. And I can do it on the other side. So the great thing about this is when I get these 4 done and I do the other side, I actually have 8 cutting surfaces because I've got 4 on this side and 4 on this side. So the tool will last quite a while because of the number of cutting surfaces you have. And if you've worked on the flat, you take the steel and again you press on the very top and you drag it across it. What I've done is, again, step 1 is nice and square. Step 2, keeping it at 90 degrees, I've spread the material apart. And step 3, I've actually created the burr. You don't want to go from step 1 to step 3 because the burr will be too close to the surface of the material and you won't be able to cut properly with it. So by spreading it apart in step 2, it gets it away from the surface and it allows you to scrape quite easily with it. So once you've done one side, you can flip it over and you do the exact same process on the other side. The other thing that you can do is you can also do it to the 2 ends. You have to find the cutting edge when you're using it. So if you hold it straight, it won't do any cutting. But if you hold it at a little bit of an angle and you find out where that edge is, all of a sudden what happens is it starts to cut huge amounts of material. So if you spent time with a scraper and you've made this sort of 3/4 round and made it look really nice and true, and the next step might have been to use a sandpaper to sandpaper it, this is a really good in-between tool to use because it will very quickly clean up any material that isn't nice and true. And then in the end, you can give it a little sanding with 220 sandpaper, and you end up saving yourself lots of time because of this little scraper. It doesn't very much rip the material. You can work both directions. And you can pretty quickly feather in and shape in a really nice shape because it takes huge amounts of material off quite quickly. You can check it out at Roarockit.com. It's called the Roarockit Edge, and if you get a chance to try one out, I think you'll really like it. It's a great tool.